we are in the grips of a cycling explosion at the moment. I wonder if you're one of the people who has dusted off your old bike over the last couple of months, or if you're like me, you've just been doing lots of riding as a family. I've started riding to school with my son as much as I can. Well, it turns out that during social distancing and isolation, and with so many people working from home, there are actually 3 times as many riders in Perth suburbs compared to the same time last year. That's according to a report released by traffic data company MetroCount. Maurice Berger, well, he's a cycling enthusiast and he's also the business development manager at MetroCount. Hello to you, Maurice.
Hi there, Di. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It is a huge jump in numbers. I suppose not really surprising, but what does your data tell us about the spike in cyclists in Perth?
Look, as you say, there are some areas where we're seeing triple the number of people on wheels, riders, not just cyclists, those of us who are sometimes in Lycra. And I'm one of those, let me tell you, we're out in force. As you say, the families are out. There's from Burns Beach up north, we're seeing at least a 50% increase in the number of people on bikes. Down to South Beach, it's almost triple, and places in between. We have permanent bicycle monitoring sites globally, but certainly for us here, all around Perth. And we also monitor pedestrians, people on foot with the same equipment. So we're not only seeing the massive increase of people on riding, but Leighton Beach, Curtin Avenue shared path that runs along the foreshore, for instance, where this time last year there'd be averaging something like 400 people on foot, walking, prams, jogging. In start of May, we had well over 1,200 people on foot bumping into each other.
Yeah, which we weren't supposed to be doing, but we couldn't help ourselves. We had to get out and about. Have you been surprised to see such an increase, particularly in people riding bikes in Perth?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we're easy to complain. I mean, that's us as human beings, and that there isn't enough room for us. And we have cars and trucks all over the place. There's been a lot of work done in the last 5, 10 and more years by the DOT, by Main Roads, to increase the links, to include more safe, active streets in our neighbourhoods. And would you believe, when we can't go to the gyms, when we're spending time at home, working from home, or not working, unfortunately, for many of us, we have time. And as you say, like you and your family, and I'm seeing in the streets, we've all got the anecdotes, we're seeing people with their old bikes that they've taken to their local bike shop, get repaired. They've brought out the bikes from the garage. They've thrown on new tyres. The bike shops are having a great time with business, which is terrific. And they're selling out of baby seats that you put on your bikes. You can't get them at the moment. So, yeah, surprising, but really welcomed, isn't it?
It is indeed. And I wonder, because I will say personally, Maurice, I'm loving riding my bike. And I've actually discovered to take my youngest son to and from school is actually quicker on the bike now than it is in the car, because of this setup that we now have, where you can't park where you used to and go into school as you might have in the past. And it's all this complicated kiss and drive setup that for some schools that aren't actually designed like that, it actually takes much longer and you have to be there earlier and stay later than you would. So I'm wanting to continue to ride my bike. Do you think that that's what will happen, that people will keep up this trend?
I think that there's a lot of people like you that have in their mind they're going to continue with this, and that they will, because the pandemic is going to remain, or the after effects of it is going to remain. And for many of us, it will mean that it's the habits that we start getting into, that hopefully those habits will stay in effect. For a lot of us, though, It's not that easy. It is not easy to ride and take your kids to the school because the roads aren't that safe, and we're starting to see already an uptake in motor vehicle traffic because people are starting to get more confident out on the road and getting back to stage 2 of the whole process. We're seeing down in Fremantle, if you know Ord Street, which is where the Fremantle Arts Centre is and the swimming pool, it has a high truck. It is a high truck thoroughfare, and I'm a data guy, so I'll give you some numbers. This time last year or early last year, 14,000 vehicles a day. Okay, just have that number in mind, 14,000. April this year, so a bit over a year, 7,000 vehicles a day. So it dropped by half. Fabulous. We're now back up to 10,000 vehicles a day. The truck traffic, though, has remained constant. Yeah, the goods vehicles are still out there. So if you are somebody that needs to ride from your footpath onto a road, to get across the road, to take your kids to the school and so on, the last couple of months has been really good, and as we're getting into the school term. But with more and more traffic coming on, you're going to find it, some of you, a little hairy.
So what does that mean? Do you think it's an opportunity for Perth cycling infrastructure to be improved? I understand that Melbourne and Sydney are looking at and upgrading their cycling paths. Is that something we should be doing here?
For sure, and we have done a great deal. We've spent millions and millions. It's amazing the amount of money, not just on roads, but on paths. If you know the Perth-Fremantle route that runs alongside Curtin Avenue, a lot of great work has been done with the Western Suburbs Councils to get that going, and the DOT has now extended that. Great wide path. I was on that today. All the way to Victoria Street Station. We need to expedite the investments and bring those forward, increase jobs as well. So would you believe it will cost an extra $6 million to extend from Victoria Street Station to North Fremantle, just one station? It's a bucket load of money, but we need that to be done, because if we don't, then that link will have stopped and we won't continue. As you say, Melbourne and Sydney are providing grants. In Sydney, $100,000 grants for immediate pilot projects where they'll widen footpaths and create cycle lanes. The councils will be able to do that on their own. In Melbourne, they're starting to remove car parking spaces, shock horror for the retailers, and widen footpaths and bring in pop-up bike lanes. So it's got to be what we do ourselves, but it really needs to be the councils and the road authorities that have all that money and do what can take the impetus and the motivation that we've got right now, so that the next few years we keep staying on our bikes, keep walking, reduce the health costs, of course, and really make Perth, which has the wonderful weather we have, the great streets that we have, and the people that want to do this, will make it a fabulous city.
I agree. Morris Berger, great to talk to you this afternoon. Thanks so much. Morris is a cycling enthusiast and also the business development manager at MetroCount. And looking at the huge rise in the number of people riding bikes, also walking as well. A daily average of 1,200 cyclists were tracked riding along the South Perth foreshore last year. That number jumped to 2,518 in April this year and almost tripled to 3,079 for a day at the beginning of May. So interesting, isn't it? Meanwhile, Transport Minister Rita Sefiotti has reported traffic on Perth roads has returned to around 80% of pre-pandemic levels, following reductions of more than 50% last month. And just over this week of coming to work every day, I've definitely noticed that it's going up every day.